Dalton Rushing has his first pair of major league hits. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more coming up on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Clay Link alongside FSWA Hall of Famer Todd Zola. Always fun talking with you on Fridays, Todd, and we'll be doing our normal thing, talking two-start pitchers for next week, but Dalton Rushing capturing a lot of people's attention. A couple hits last night in his debut, also drew a walk. The Dodgers' number 3 prospect, according to our rankings, James Anderson's rankings. And yeah, it seems like people are pretty excited about him. I asked you a similar question with Ha-Seong Kim a few weeks ago, how he would fit in long term. How do you see Dalton Rushing fitting in on this Dodgers team long term?
Yeah, Dalton, I saw him last night. I thought he'd be bigger for the 3 people out there that get that joke. Anyway, Michael Conforto isn't really lighting the world on fire. Dalton Rushing hits left-handed. Will Smith's going to play a lot. I can see Rushing taking away some at-bats from Conforto. Certainly got off to a good start. He's catching last night, but certainly got off to a good start. So I think just because he's going to catch 2 or 3, maybe twice a week, not much DH time with Ohtani there, he's worthwhile in 2 catcher leagues. Not enough for 1 catcher leagues yet, but I think in 2 catcher leagues, you're going to see 3 to 4 games a week, which is more than a backup catcher.
Yeah, I look at the numbers in terms of appearances in the field, and only 2 appearances in left field, 1 start at AAA Oklahoma City this year, and only 4 starts in left field at AA Tulsa last year. So I wonder how much left field is really an option for Rushing. But kind of like with Ha-Seong Kim, it's like, he's kind of ingratiated himself, and to the point where when Edman comes back, it sounds like they're going to find a way to keep Kim. So, they DFA'd Austin Barnes. It just seems like Rushing, even if it's not in quite a regular role, there's definitely an option for him to stick around. I do wonder about the outfield, though, and of course, DH not an option on this Dodgers team.
Not unless towards the end of the season when Ohtani's pitching a little bit more, he gets a few more off days. Maybe, who knows? But I don't think you can plan on that. And you mentioned Edman, he's close.
Yeah.
Could be this. There's no date put up yet or reported yet, but I guess it could be this weekend, although maybe early next week at the latest. So that's interesting. You got Kike Hernandez is not going anywhere, right? But has the Chris Taylor's time, is that about to come to a close with the Dodgers? He's a DFA candidate and would open up a spot.
Yeah, could be. I've seen some people suggest he's not going anywhere in the immediate future, but could be an option. I know a lot of people didn't expect Austin Barnes to go anywhere so soon.
He's got 35 plate appearances, does Taylor, 200, 257. You've got Hernandez, you've got Kim, you got Edman. I mean, you got even Mookie. You got a bunch of flexibility. Do you keep this 34-year-older around, or do you go with some of the youth and Dalton Rushing and Kim? I don't know. I think Taylor will find a job somewhere, but he to me is kind of the clear. Burns cleared a spot, but I think he's kind of the clear guy that needs to make sure that he has his stuff in order.
I believe now with Barnes gone, he is the longest tenured Dodger on the roster. That'll change soon, though.
I mean, maybe James Outman goes back down, I guess.
Yeah.
But even so, Taylor to me, it's at some point the Dodgers are going to need the space, and you still got Miguel Rojas. How do they only have 26 players?
Yeah,
seems like we got 25 already.
Parts, it feels like. But yeah, I do expect Kim to stick around even when Edman returns. Edman not expected to need a rehab assignment, which is kind of nice if you manage him in fantasy baseball.
Yeah.
But Teoscar Hernandez is expected to need a rehab assignment.
And yeah, so we're looking at middle to end of next week. I was just looking at that right now. So we're looking at middle to end of next week. That basically, that Andy Pott has been filling in, playing, every day. Not that he wasn't anyway. So sure, I mean, Edmund just feel Edmund takes Hernandez's spot in the outfield, maybe different positions, but that still leaves a couple utilities open. Nice problem to have.
Well, Rushing actually was the top pickup in the stake league last night. Then behind him at $11 was Brett Baty. Man, he's really turned it on since he came back to the big leagues. Does have some swing and miss issues that could endanger his playing time again soon. But 4 homers his last 6 games. Well, I was in on him at I think 7 or 8, and I wanted him here, but just missed him at $11. How do you see him playing out? I mean, are you in on Brett Baty and what he's shown just in the small sample?
I guess I'm in. This is that whole eternal, what kind of proof do you need nowadays?
Yeah.
He's playing. And to me, I mean, it's more and as I talk about my piece this week, it's more circumstantial evidence than proof, but he's playing. And I guess you just got to ride it out. And, you're going to ride out 10 guys and hope that 5 of them, 6 of them help you and the other 4 or 5 don't. You break even, I guess. I don't know. It's not in my DNA to play this manner, but it's the way you have to play nowadays. I think you got to, 4 homers since being called up. No doubles. And he only has 6 hits. So, but he only has 3 strikeouts.
That's big, because strikeouts were a big problem for him earlier.
Yeah, but he hasn't walked either.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like you say something bad and I'll say something good. We can keep going back and forth, So I think you have to pick him up. I'm not spending a ton because I'm not spending what I think will be the amount that he's going to play the rest of the year. But if I have a hole, now does Baty have middle qualifications yet? Is he still working on that?
I think he does, at least in stake league, and I think in
15.
Yeah.
So in most leagues at this point he does, because it's either 5 for the rule book or 10 for the NFBC. So 15 gets some eligibility in a lot of leagues next year.
True. And like you said, there are a few pathways. Unlike for Rushing, Baty's got multiple pathways. I think DH would be open for him. I think with the Starling Martes of the world not really representing huge obstacles, and then of course second base and third base for Baty as well. Mark Vientos has kind of really struggled so far, but not completely faded from view here. But
I read somewhere that all the Mets have to do is trade Baty in a secondary prospect and get Rafael Devers.
Yeah, it could have.
I have read, how many teams are in the league? 29. I have read 29 really insipid trade offers that are out there, for Rafael Devers.
Yeah. Well, the rumor started this week. I think Ken Rosenthal maybe said, it's not completely unrealistic for them to trade Devers this year. We know that things have kind of gotten sour between him and the front office. Stephen Kolek picked up for 11. I'm not buying in too much to what he did against the lowly Rockies, but you got to give Kolek credit. I think he's one of 4 players to throw a complete game shutout this year, a shutout.
Yeah.
So at least I think I did have a $0 bid on him, but not hugely interested. Dennis Santana for 9, who I just dropped recently in this league, of course. And I need a closer too. So
as you saw in our Slack chat, I think you made the right move.
Yeah, because it seems like since Derek Shelton got canned, maybe Bednar more flexible, not boxed into the 9th.
One of the things I love about the Slack chat that you guys are kind enough to let me in on is we get to discuss these things. We share our opinions, and whoever's the lead on whatever topic it's being discussed listens to everybody and decides. There was a movement that thought Santana's the closer. I think it's a co-closer scenario. I think we don't have enough information yet. It's tough when you win 3 games in 3 weeks to figure out who's closing. But my read is if at worst it's a co-closer, and I still think Bednar is going to get more saves. Now, is he going to get 35 or 20? Probably closer to 20, if that, right? But I think he's the main guy still.
Yeah, I think so. I would lean that way, but the way the usage has been since Shelton was fired suggests,
well,
Santana will continue to work the ninth on the
that's where I disagree, because it hasn't been classic, winning in the eighth, winning in the ninth. It's been down by a run in the eighth, or the one time was a classic scenario was against Atlanta, and Bednar pitched the eighth, but he pitched against the top of the Braves order, Albies and Olsen and Riley, not in that order. And then he retired them, and then Santana gave up 2 runs in the ninth and got the save. But that's the only time in the last 2 weeks that there's been a classic save opportunity. Everything else, since Bednar's in the eighth, well, it's in a 1-1 game, or they're down 4-3, or something like that. Hasn't been. I don't know. I don't think we can read too much into it just yet. And as you said, new manager. We're not. Maybe this is using Bednar in the fireman scenario.
Lenin Sosa at $3, and I picked up Yimi Garcia for $3. Again, I need a closer, and just kind of trying to make do without spending big bucks here, trying to get ahead of one of these changes. Jeff Hoffman has really struggled. Yimi Garcia's had some recent struggles himself, but Hoffman seems to be really on the fringe right now. Gave up 5 earned runs his last time out, a couple 3 spots earlier in May. So he's, he had a great start, but Jeff Hoffman's job security is dwindling, I have to say.
I think, it's no longer as secure as we may have thought it was. He's only had 3 bad outings. Well, he's had 3 bad outings, and they've been fairly recent. So not dropping Hoffman, but I can certainly see a short-term replacement or substitute going on. Curious to see who gets the next Toronto's opportunity.
Then I also picked up Pierce Johnson for $1, dropping Roki Sasaki, who's been a big disappointment now on the injured list, of course. And Raisel Iglesias has had some struggles himself lately. I think he has, a longer leash than Jeff Hoffman. He's been in Atlanta for a while, and he's, really been a nice fit there. And did get on track with a save yesterday, but a blown save earlier this week, and runs allowed in 3 consecutive appearances before last night. So, also Daysbel Hernandez, I believe. Yeah, Daysbel Hernandez was picked up at 5. So not a clear-cut situation behind Iglesias, but do you think he could be in trouble losing the job?
Short term, I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing.
Yeah.
Who knows with closers, but no, I think it's potentially a short-term thing, if that. The name that you haven't mentioned, maybe you're going to, I don't know. Is Lewis May rostered already in this league?
I don't think so. And I know you've been beating that drum, and I'm with you. I think, he's the closer of the future there in Cincinnati.
I want to get ahead of the curve. It's tough to do that sometimes. So if you have the ability to stash Luis May, he hasn't worked in high. We're talking the Reds, Emilio Pagan. Mm-hmm. He hasn't worked in high scenario situations yet, but he closed in the Arizona Fall League. He's closed in the minor leagues. 11 strikeouts for 7 1/3. No homers allowed, only 3 walks, and he's a fireballer. He has the the stuff, if you will, of a closer. So if you can afford to stash, I think you should find a spot for Louis. I think you can use May, as a 6. Instead of a 7th starter in a pinch. But to me, he's an intriguing stash right now.
Yeah, I don't know if he'd immediately jump over like Tony Santillan, but maybe. I mean, Terry Francona seems to like Santillan as like his highest leverage arm. And, I don't know that Pagan's really long for the job. He hasn't pitched poorly, but he's just so homer prone. That park, I just feel like it's gonna melt down at some point.
I think with Santillan, what his health isn't. He's not really a bastion of health. I agree, and Santillan's pitching well. He's not mowing him down strikeout wise, but he's doing what a guy like Terry Francona would want him to do. So I agree there. But I'm not talking about next week for May. But I think as someone, if you can afford to stash, he's not a bad speculative choice at this point.
Addison Barger has been catching some people's attention. He's been hitting the ball hard lately. And how about Moises Ballesteros? Big boy, big beefcake, big beef boy. And I just, I don't know how much he's going to play. So he's not somebody I'm super interested in. but did hit well on the farm. So young kid though.
Yeah, and he's a catcher, but defense is clearly lacking. The bat may not be lacking already. I mean, he had a 946 OPS as a 21-year-old in Iowa. Right now, he's doing a lot of DHing. Would say a Suzuki move in the outfield and Ian Happ, who's very, very durable. Draft Ian Happ because he never misses a game except when he's on the IL this year. Oh boy. Anyway, but no. So will Ballesteros stay with the club afterwards? I don't. When Happ is back, probably not. You got Kelly, you got Amaya. I don't know. But right now, if you need a second catcher and you're kind of musical chairs, I think Ballesteros is in the mix.
Yeah, Angelo in the chat mentioned Drake Baldwin. He's really been swinging a hot bat.
He's been taking playing time from Murphy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really kind of. Wouldn't say he's leaped Murphy yet, but he's really forced pretty much a 50-50
timeshare at this point, right? Yeah.
And he's batting second yesterday.
Yeah.
So really pretty impressive. Only a one catcher league, the stake league, but he was picked up, I believe, at 6. And pretty darn impressive there. But also we had a question in the chat about Walker Buehler. Slayer Live PR said, is Walker Buehler worth stashing? I would say in a league where he's available, probably not, actually. Like, you could if you need pitching help. He's expected back next week. So close, but he just performance-wise, I don't know that he's really shown enough to warrant one in a 12-team league.
No, he's sort of in the middle of finding what he is in between being such a four-seam fastball guy and pitching for the Red Sox, who they don't shy away. Well, they shy away. They don't ignore it, but the team throws fewer four-seamers. And I think Buehler was in the process of transitioning. Then he got hurt, so the transition was not complete. So I don't know. I don't think we know what we know. So 12-team leagues, no, I'm not interested in Buehler. 15, 15-team NFBC, TGFBI. I throw a buck on him if I have a spot. And if I don't, if nothing changes and I need that spot next week, I churn him, and all I did was lose a buck of fab, and I'm going to end up with more than a buck anyway. So maybe in a 15-teamer, but not in the 12. I think the spots are too valuable. You don't want to stash in a 12. Maybe you do. Maybe that's my problem. I think you want people that can help you in a 12-team league and play their best lineup that week.
Yeah, I think so. I do think I have Bubba Chandler stashed in 112, but generally I agree with you there.
Well, I think this is so weird to say. I think Chandler's upside is higher than Buehler's.
Yeah, I think so too. And he should be up pretty soon. Hopefully. I really don't know what's taken so long, to be honest. But and also not a guy who's widely available, but if Ryan Weathers is out there, I'd say get aggressive, because I started him in the stake league, just didn't feel good about it, but then he got the win in his return and throwing hard. I think 98. Pretty excited about Ryan Weathers.
I talked about him with James and Eric today on XXM, and that they were asking me in particular, is like, you've been talking about needing proof. Do you have enough proof for Ryan Weathers yet? I was like, no, but we're not going to get it if you don't pick up. He just the fact that he looked so good in the spring and looked so good in his first start. That's it's circumstantial evidence. It's not proof, but that's really all you can go on now. Mm-hmm. And if you need pitching, if you've got Tanner Houck, then you need help, and Weathers could offer that help.
Yeah, Slayer followed up and said he'll drop Buehler for Weathers. I think that's,
what?
That's the call.
That's such a weird, to sign off on that feels so weird, but yeah, I think that's the move.
Yeah, I mean, not like Miami's going to provide a ton of wins, but pretty spacious park, and I just think the upside is high given how hard he's throwing. Yeah. But definitely would drop Buehler for Weathers, or Chandler, of course, if he's out there. All right, Todd. Well, let's get into the 2-star pitchers here. We'll pause real quick, briefly, to bring you a quick prepaid word from our sponsors, then we'll be back here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. All right, welcome back to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Clay Link and Todd Zola on this Friday, and we're looking ahead to next week's two-start pitchers, the week of May 19th, 2025. You're in the 2-month mark already.
Where has April went by kind of a little slow. May has flown by.
Yeah, it really has.
I mean, everybody has their own perspective, but yeah, May has seemed to gone by pretty quickly.
Very true. And we'll start with Brandon Pfaadt. You can follow along with us, by the way, by going to our probable pitchers page, custom start date 5/19, show starters. Brandon Pfaadt's got to go face the Dodgers.
Ooh.
And then at St. Louis. He's been pitching pretty well. I don't like that Dodgers matchup, though. I'm trying to see, does he face the Dodgers yet so far this season? Yeah, he did, and went 6 1/3 scoreless, actually, just recently, May 8th against the Dodgers. Not that really informs us much for the start to come, but Brandon Pfaadt at LAD, at St. Louis. Tempted to go 3, but I think 2 with the Dodgers due up.
I think I am going to go 3.
Okay.
And this is an example of one of those where, man, if it rains in St. Louis that weekend, we're in trouble, right?
Yeah, that's true. Good word of warning.
We say
these
that,
are always
extremely happened
penitent.
a few times.
Yeah.
And we joke about it, but the past couple of weeks, the first thing I do now, I write notes for ESPN each morning. I have to check the weather because I have to lead that column with, 3 of the 16 games, this week or 15 games tonight are under a threat of rain. It's part of the story nowadays. Even tonight, there's a couple.
Yeah, it's kind of windy and overcast here in Madison, so it seems like it could be a rainy weekend across the U.S. So you're going 3 on 5.
Yeah, I'm going 3. But then keeping my starting point is probably a little bit higher on Brendan Pfaadt. I think he was a breakthrough candidate for me this year, and maybe broke through last year. But I think that I'm still expecting good things the rest of the season.
And how about Corbin Carroll for that team? I think I moved him up to inside the top 5 overall. Like, he's just unbelievable. Yeah,
to me, he might be number 5 at this point. And no, it's I don't know. Were we wrong? I don't know. The shoulder, we're not even talking the shoulder anymore. He's such a fun guy to root for, a great player, defense, and everything else. So
I got him actually 4th behind Judge, Ohtani, and Witt, and then right ahead of Tatis and De La Cruz.
I think you're missing Jose Ramirez, but that's all right.
I have him 7th, but and then Kyle Tucker. There's a lot of good players up top, of course.
Oh yeah, Ramirez is actually slightly better than last year, although the power's a little bit down. It's just, to me, he's one of the quietest, most durable, reliable players in the game. And if he was on another team, he'd be getting even more a plume. But put those 4 guys in a hat and pick one out, and you can't be wrong.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he has always, and I've been guilty of it, just not appreciating Jose Ramirez probably as much as I should. But let's get back to the 2-star pitchers. JT Ginn, he is due back, but only threw 3 1/3 against El Paso on May 14th. So I would expect, it's not out of the question he could go 5, but I'm probably going 0 on Ginn until I see a little more.
Yeah, it's a shame. They're both at home, which may not be a good thing. I'm going to go 0 as well. I don't know that I trust it. The second one's Philadelphia in Sacramento, and it's on Sunday, which I know is going to be a day game because all the day, that's when it gets warmest in Sacramento. So I think we have to be concerned.
And then Osvaldo Bido for the Athletics as well. He's also versus the Angels versus Philadelphia. I may go 1 here. Doesn't feel good, but I think I'd have him just a notch above Ginn.
I agree. Enough strikeouts that, if he the LA, the first start could carry him through the second, for the purpose of being a 1. The first start could be, maybe it's a 3 for that first start and a 0 for the second. So we give him a 1, something like that.
And here's a big one, Spencer Strider.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have confirmation that he's going to start on Tuesday, but he is expected to make a start against this Washington team. lines up for earlier in the week after throwing a sim game, but his velocity down in that sim game, especially after the first inning, makes me wonder if, be a minute or two before we actually see Strider back at full strength. Regardless, at Washington versus San Diego, I'm still probably going a 4, bypassing the rehab assignment. 5 pitcher, but coming back from injury, probably a 4 for me.
We haven't heard any reports that the velocity drop is by design, but it wouldn't shock me if that's what we find out.
I think they suggested it was just more like, shaking off the injury, just kind of still ramping up.
Yeah, but would it shock you if we're not quite at the old level? The same with Paul Skeens a little bit. I know where are the strikeouts? I wonder if he's trying to tone down a bit on throwing the ball through a wall to try to stay healthy. But I'm in Washington and San Diego. It's Strider. I'm with you on a 4.
And then for Baltimore, Dean Kramer at Milwaukee, at Boston. I'm probably going 0 on Dean Kramer. This team stinks, Todd. And I just we'll talk about who else for this team has a 2-star coming up. Not going to be a 0 for me, but Kramer, I don't see any scenario where I would trot him out.
I don't see it either, but he's the cagey guy that's going to throw a decent outing. But I don't think you can have him in your roster and hope that he does it. He just once in a while teases you like that.
And then that other 2-star option for Baltimore that I alluded to, Tomoyuki Sugano, and a lot of people wondering if he's just smoking mirrors. Like, what is this? Based on the strikeouts, the lack of strikeouts, it is tough to trust. But he just, I know his last time out was a loss, but he's just been getting the job done.
I think he's more than smoking mirrors, but he's not as good as he's shown.
Yeah, I mean, again, this team is big disappointment. It's been really bad. Sugano's kind of been like the stopper, like as far as slump buster. But at Milwaukee, at Boston, I think I can only go 2 here.
I'm going 2 as well, and again, that's coming from someone who was pretty high on Sugano coming into the season, so I'm only going 2 as well.
Yeah, I do think you probably hit the nail on the head, suggesting Sugano could have more initial success than Roki Sasaki.
Well, I was mimicking. I was repeating what Tom Mulhall from Baseball HQ his analysis, and Tom writes the Asian part of the forecaster. He wrote a piece for me in the Fantasy Index magazine about he and Tim McLeod, our buddy Tim, are probably the 2 go-to guys in the industry for baseball over there in Japan. So when Tom mentioned that, I took notice.
And Sugano, just the velocity down, not getting that fastball by anybody. So like no whiffs on his fastball in the last start before he hit the IL. So
Sasaki, right?
Yeah, Sasaki. He was a drop for me again. All right, to Boston, Hunter Dobbins and Walker Buehler. Sounds like you and I both are pretty down on Buehler. Dobbins, though,
I'm in the middle. I don't think I want to see. I'm kind of frustrated because I don't. It's an incomplete, and I wanted to see where it would go, but I'm not willing to do it while he's on my roster. That's the problem. I think there was some potential of him figuring it out, but now it's just delayed a bit.
True. We had a
Interesting
question.
Matchups.
Yeah, true. Real quick, we had a question in the chat about Tyler McGill tonight, streaming him in Yankee Stadium. I don't feel good about it, but he has pitched pretty well. I wouldn't completely shy away, but if we were grading him for tonight, I mean, it might be like a 3. Like Yankee Stadium is just so tough.
Yeah, he comes out as my 12th ranked pitcher for tonight, and there's some really crappy pitchers tonight.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a guarantee. Yankee Stadium again, it plays positive for homers, obviously, but if you keep the ball in the yard, it's a pitcher's park. But you keep the ball in the yard against that lineup.
Aaron
Yeah,
Judge
to
is
me,
silly.
I guess if it's like a head to head and I only have 12 starts for the week, maybe this isn't one of them. But I don't know. I think there are better options.
Yeah, if you're throwing everything at the wall at this stage, maybe, but
And
I'd probably be a little more conservative.
I think there are weather issues tonight in
Are there?
Yankee Stadium too.
Well, thankfully, we have a pretty nice weather report page. It's actually manually written up every single day. And yeah, the Yankees are under threat of weather tonight. So let me just see what he said here. Slight chance of showers may lead to a brief delay. No postponement expected, however. But
I'm looking.
It doesn't mean it's certainly not going to be rained.
Yeah, so I'm looking what Kevin Roth from Roto Grinder says. I like to use the two of them, get both opinions, and try to figure out what I want to do from there. Yeah, Roth thinks it's going to play, but it could be wet. Does that mean that it's a 4 inning and then a delay or something like that? I don't know that it moves me one way or another from McGill.
All right, back to the Red Sox here. Dobbins versus the Mets versus Baltimore, 2 home starts. The same for Buehler. I think Dobbins is probably going to be a 3, given how well he's pitched.
Yeah, and I mean the Mets are a good offense. I think they're better than good. And Baltimore is what they're doing now. I get to keep in mind that Fenway Park is a hitter's park. I kind of forget that sometimes. I'm going to go. Does he deserve a 3? I'm still just going to go 2.
Okay.
But I see it's like a 2.499. I mean, it's so close to rounding up to a 3. Buehler,
I'm going 2 on Buehler.
Yeah, I think it's a more definite 2. Part of where I'm coming from too is the Red Sox offense is not churning the way I wish it would. That, well, you know what? He just needs to go 5 1/3 to get a win. You can't say that. And I don't know how much you've got to see Detroit play. That team is fun. Red Sox lost 3 close games at the end. They weren't all extra innings, but I think they're all walk-offs. And that Detroit team is fun to watch.
Best team in baseball, I believe. At least in terms of win-loss record. Yeah.
Maybe they are the best team.
Today. And then we had a question about A.J. Smith-Shawver and if we think he's going to stick in the rotation once Strider's back. And I think so. We have him over Grant Holmes on the depth chart now.
Elder has been sent down, which is, one I don't want to say roadblock, but one, yes, I do. I think A.J. Smith, I've been saying this all year. I think that Smith-Shawver is going to establish himself and will be part of that rotation. Who's to say they don't go 6?
Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Who's to say they don't go 6-man with Strider needing a little break now and again and Chris Sale? So maybe we stay in just for a little while with a 6-man rotation.
Yeah, it seems like Shawver's really putting it together already.
Yes.
Like the breakout's already started. So pretty darn impressive. And that Atlanta team putting it together. So
they're 500, and weren't they 7 games under 500 to start?
Yeah, they started 0-7. Yeah, pretty. I think we all expected them to get on track, but now Acuna, already up at AAA and hitting well. So,
what's the key? Watching it, and once he plays 2 full games in the outfield in a row, that's when we still get most interested.
Yeah, right? I was kind of surprised that he went from the complex league straight to AAA after one game, but he did homer in that one game. So. They seem to be, aggressive, but probably not, within a week, I wouldn't say, but maybe not long after. Ben Brown for the Chicago Cubs at Miami, at Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Reds in a bad way, losing a series at home against the White Sox of all teams. Brown, though, he actually faced the Marlins his last time out, 5 1/3. Aside from a couple hiccups, he's been okay. Whip is high, though. Probably only going a 1 here, but I could see it if you're really stretched thin.
I'm going 2. I've seen it. It's kind of a betting on the come. I think Brown is trying to establish himself. I like these matchups a little bit. I'm going to go 2.
All right. Well, differ there, but not by too much. Nick Lodolo at Pittsburgh versus the Chicago Cubs. We talked earlier about how the strikeouts just haven't really been there. And he did have a 9K game at the end of April, but I am a little worried that the strikeouts have not been very, been pretty sparse, actually. Only 42 and 52 and 2/3 innings. I think he's working in the changeup a bit more and not leaning so heavily on that big looping curveball that he's known for. But, until the strikeouts ramp up here, he's still been pretty darn good. Let me double check this. At Pitt versus Chicago. Probably going 3, but I could see the case for a 4.
I'm with you. I can see the case, but I don't think I'm going to make the case.
I hear you there. All right, next up we have Logan Allen of the Guardians, who surprised his last time out. 6 scoreless, just 3 hits, 6 Ks. He had a 7-run outing on April 27th, has him at a 3.70 ERA, 1.52 WHIP. So that's not what you want to see. But at Minnesota, at Detroit, probably just a 1.
Yeah, I'm sighing because he was my gonna get rid of Logan Allen this week player last week, and well, I did, and he came through. Minnesota, Detroit, and Twins aren't bad. Detroit's got that plugging away lineup. Yeah, I wish I would say I wish we disagreed more. We're agreeing a lot this week. I'm gonna go 1 as well. It's not a 0, but I mean it was one good start. I don't know if that balances out a year's worth of blah.
Yeah, and Gavin Williams has been pretty blah.
Yeah, this is a tough one because he's another guy I thought would break out a bit.
Me too. I bought in probably too much on that spring, and it hasn't been especially pretty for Gavin Williams, although encouraging outing his last time out. At Minnesota, at Detroit for Gavin Williams as well. Probably going 3, but that probably comes with some bias, having a lot of shares of him and kind of needing him to get right.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2 because I think I don't have that bias.
Yeah. I mean, he has pitched basically like a 2, so, but I'm still holding out hope. Again, probably did, put too much stock into that spring, which, tell myself every year not to do.
Yeah.
But certain things, are so tempting. Sometimes you can't pass it up. The Rockies, Kyle Freeland's 0-6. Antonio Sentatel's 1-7. This team might be the worst team ever. 0 for both of them.
Might be. Man, it's terrible. Yeah, 0. Can we go below 0?
Well, just last year the White Sox set the record, but you think the Rockies break it for the most losses?
They could. I mean, look at those teams are beating up on the Rockies, but Padres and Diamondbacks and Dodgers and Giants, those are good teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to get crushed.
Yeah, it's a ridiculously bad team and kind of an embarrassment for.
But they got rid of their manager, so they'll be good again, right?
Yeah, he was the problem. Davis Martin for the White Sox got to go to Seattle, or no, home against Seattle rather, than home against Texas. He hasn't been pitching that poorly, but only 33 Ks and 49 in the 3rd innings. I think I'm going to go 0. I don't see the point.
The point being that Texas is terrible, and they were without Seager, but even that's not enough to get me higher than a.
Hey, Jake Berger's back now.
Yeah, I've been saying the whole thing along about Berger was his underlying metrics were better than last year's. It just wasn't getting the results. Already striking out more, and I heard the broadcast that the day got back, and I think they were working on contact with Berger and confidence, and he hasn't. Look at that 1-0. I don't know. That was fun last night because it was like the only game in town. DeGrom versus Brown, that 1-0 game. Both teams playing some really good defense. Dolos Garcia diving all over the place. Right? That was a fun game.
Yeah, it's DeGrom just awesome, but yeah, the Texas offense I don't know how they've been so bad, but I guess when you have Jock Peterson still, batting in that DH spot every day, it's going to be tough. For Detroit, they have Kiter Montero in there, but Tariq Skubal we have tentatively in there. He's going to be an obvious 5, one of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best. So he's a 5. Extremely tentative, though. We should always mention that. Framber Valdez at Tampa Bay versus Seattle. Seattle's been quite good offensively, but not one that scares you at home so much. And he's pitched pretty well. Not the win-loss record really shows it. But a 1.14 whip. He's
Valdez is in an easy 5 for me, regardless.
5, okay.
Yeah, I mean, came into the year as a 5 for me, and he has not done anything to disprove it. Maybe if it's at the Yankees and at the Dodgers, I'll say 4. But I think Valdez is fine.
Yeah, you don't love going to that minor league park in Tampa, Steinbrenner Park, but I'm going to agree with you on a 5. His whip has been so consistent, like between 1.14 and 1.16 pretty much every year.
And that's without a ton of it's with enough strikeouts to be dangerous. I mean, usually you like to have, when you're having the ball put in play so much, the whip's in danger, but it hasn't been for Valdez.
How about Chris Bubich? 1.66 ERA, kind of emerging as one of the top stories of the first couple months of the season here. The lefty's going to be at San Francisco, then at Minnesota. Not a bad setup for him. Not a 5, but with way he's pitched, I don't see how you're benching him.
Yeah,
to go 4.
I am too. Now, you mentioned before, you shouldn't buy into so much spring training. Well, then you would have missed out on Bubich. So you have. I mean, there's not a definitive approach. You just have to hope you got it right.
Yeah, very true. All right, next up for the Angels, Jose Soriano, Kyle Hendricks. Hendricks is going to be 0. Yep. Just can't trust him. But Soriano at the Athletics versus Miami. Not the worst setup here for Soriano. This Angels team, bad though. I think Soriano is probably going to be a 2 for me.
There's enough. I think I'm going to go with the 1. I think, but there is enough strikeout floor that I can see the 2. But I'm gonna stick with the 1. Points league 2. I'm gonna stay with the 1. But I can see the point.
Oh, well, I am okay with you mocking my points league 1.
Well, it wasn't mocking. It was I meant not. It was not. I didn't mean it. It sounded like mocking. I was like, is this an example of what could be a points league? Because I think we don't make enough of the difference in scoring. It kind of came up. I did a podcast with Patrick Davitt and talking about our rankings, how I do them, and that it's so specific to 5x5. He asked me an interesting question. Why don't you post the projections and at what you actually project? And the reason is no one's ever asked because I generate them. And it got me thinking, that would help points leagues because instead of replying in the comment, well, come up with how you think the pitcher will pitch and apply your points. Instead of my comments, which I don't fill in very much anymore, I'm wondering, should I use that space, that bandwidth to actually provide my projection for that pitcher? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I was just kidding. I probably deserved to be mocked for leaning on the points league 1.
You deserve to be mocked, but not for that.
Fair enough. Dodgers, no 2-star pitchers for them, but we had a question just about Clayton Kershaw and his return this weekend against the Angels. If you were in a league that allows streaming, maybe daily pickups, what do you think about Kershaw and his return this weekend?
I wrote up the ESPN slate streamers, and he was one of my 3 streamers. And I just wanted to talk about Kershaw. I think you can start him. It's the Angels. They're terrible. They're one of the worst teams against lefties. I think Kershaw goes 5. He pitched, 57 pitches? So 5 innings is plausible. But if you're in a league that hits us like a K9 league or a league that a limited number of starts, maybe you don't want to start him because he's probably won't get the strikeouts. He'll hurt you in that category. Our friend Chris Liss was the one who first kind of hammered the fact that strikeouts in a league with an innings and or a starts maximum is actually K per 9. So you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at pitchers. But anyway, I would start Kershaw unless I had ESPN leagues have a 12 start minimum. maximum. I would not start him because I think I could find 12 better starts over the course of a week.
Yeah, but all things being equal, I would probably trot him out there too. Just
If you're in
so
it's a little late now. Maybe it's not. Like your stake league goes Thursday, DVR's league. Maybe just because the Cubs have played, maybe you can still in a Thursday to a third where you can still make a decision in a weekly league. I'm putting them out there.
Yeah, same here. And then for the Marlins, Edward Cabrera is going to be a 0. Just the command is so spotty that it playing with fire every time.
Yeah, you can strike out 7 or you can give up 7 homers.
Yeah, exactly.
Flip a coin.
And Quinn Priester is also going to be a 0 for me. I'd imagine he's out of this rotation before long. Had a couple good starts to begin his tenure with the Brewers, but it hasn't been pretty lately.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of forced in there. He acquired from the Red Sox. He gave up a good prospect to get him. It was more out of necessity. I'm not giving up on Priester. The Brewers have shown that maybe now, get him in the minors and work with him, right? Not on the major league level. It's not the time you want to work with a guy. But he was needed, filled in, and Woodruff's back. Myers is back. Let's see what Priester can do.
Bailey Ober for the Twins. I'm going to assume he's a 5 for you, and 2 home starts versus Cleveland versus KC.
It is a matter of looking at the lineups. It's not, to me, it's no longer automatic. He's on that border. He was on my top pitcher. He's on my SP3, which isn't necessarily a 5. But in these matchups, I'm going to go 5. KC's tough. They grind you, right? They don't pound you. They grind you.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on Jack Caglione. I don't know when he's going to be up or even move up to AAA, but he could be a big piece for them just to boost that offense even more. But Maikel Garcia's been great. Pasquantino's picked it up, and that I know Detroit's in front in that division, but I think Central has like 3 or 4 teams that are in the playoff hunt.
Maikel Garcia. Did you just mention him?
Yeah, I did.
I thought you said, I thought you did. Is that what he said? Yeah, I'll double down on what Garcia's been doing. Second base, third base eligibility. I think he's a nice little reserve or guy to, keep your lineup fortified because he can jump him around.
Cody Senga's got some tough matchups. I would think he'd be a 5, and I'm leaning that way. But at Boston versus the Dodgers, could be a regression week, but the way he's pitched, I don't see how you could swap him out. So I'm going to go 5.
The strikeouts are always going to be there. I'm still going to go 4 though. Okay. I mean, I'm starting him.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of compared to some of the other players where I would rank him within some of these other players. Maybe he's the last of the 5s, but I'm going to go 4.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think he leads qualified starters in ERA and the strikeouts you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with a 5. Will Warren's got to go to Colorado to end next week, but
that's a good thing.
That's true. That's no longer a bad thing. And then home against Texas to start. Yeah, he's pretty spotty this year, but I think I'm going to go 3 given the matchups. You're right that. That actually may be a good thing to face Colorado.
Coming in this year, let's predict what we're going to say on May 16th. We would have said 0 for this one. Texas is a good lineup, and then Colorado. I'm with you. Well, I know that's Warren. I'm going to go 2.
Only 2, okay. That's
a weird week that you seem to be. I'm usually +1 on you. You're hitting the +1 button this week.
Yeah, that's true. I do like Will Warren though, and that's another one where I may be holding on to my preseason expectations a little bit, but he's been okay. The guy who has not been okay is Aaron Nola. Now he does go to Colorado, and then at the Athletics.
That's a good thing. Oh gosh, yeah, I don't know.
Luzardo's been awesome. I mean, Luzardo, I think is going to be at Colorado at the Athletics. Just given the parks, I may go 4 on Luzardo. He's been pitching like a 5 though. He's been awesome. Nola 1-7 with a 6.16 ERA. I don't know what's happened to him, but just has fallen apart this year. And it's going to be tough for him to chip away at this. I mean, this is such a bad start that it's, even if he's normal Nola from here on out, final numbers will be pretty ugly. Man,
Prior
So
to
he
his
gave up
last 2
3
starts, I
homers.
could have made an argument that he would return to form, but these last 2 starts have been terrible.
Yeah.
7 strikeouts and 8 2/3 with 5 homers allowed. And it's Cleveland and St. Louis, not exactly powerhouses. So, gosh, and you know how much I like Nola. 5 and, gosh, is this going to be Nola's lowest rank ever?
I think I'm going to go 1.
I can't go 1 just because I can't. I'm going to
Yeah.
go 2. But, I mean, I don't think if he's been below a 4, it's been with someone else other than me helping you out.
So you had 5 on Luzardo?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I trust him in Colorado. Lefty, I'm not as scared about Colorado. It's not. I'm sure the park is still the park, but that lineup is just pitiful.
For the Pirates, Mitch Keller and Bailey Falter, home against Cincinnati, then home against Milwaukee. So you like that they're both at home, but Mitch Keller 1 and 5. I think I'll go 2 on Keller.
He's the best 1 and 5 pitcher in the league. I'm going to go 3. I think he's pitching well under the hood.
Okay.
And I mean, it just victim of circumstances on that club. I mean, Paul Skeens can't buy a win in that club. It's not bad under the hood. But Falter, I can't. Well, both at home. All right, can I go 1? I guess I can go 1.
Yeah, Falter at 1 feels right to me as well. Next up, we have Dylan Cease at Toronto at Atlanta. Hasn't really pitched to expectations this year, but Toronto at Atlanta. Gosh, I was leaning 3, but I don't think I can go lower than a 4 here.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following Cease because having places. He's my Cy Young choice. I think I even put a couple of gumdrops on Cease winning the NL Cy Young. Teases you, look, he's out, he's back, but then gives up a home run or whatever it might be. 19 strikeouts over the past 2 starts, both quality starts. I think I'm going to go 5. No, I'm going to go 4, but I think with a good week, he could be back in my circle of 5 trust.
Well, Luis Castillo is another guy who's kind of, for me, on the 4 or 5 border here. At the White Sox, which you love, and at Houston, hasn't quite pitched like a 5. But, I mean, I don't know how I'd sit him down. So I'm going to go 5.
Yeah, I am too. And hopefully Alvarez will be back by that point. Altuve's been a little dinged up. I mean, if it was flipped, if it was Houston early, I'd feel much more confident about this start. Hopefully Alvarez will be back by that point anyway. But yeah, are we expecting? Yeah, we're expecting Kirby to come back. That's interesting.
Yeah, Emerson Hancock's been bad. Now they have Bryce Miller out, and
yeah,
after last year, I mean, I think they leaned on Hancock for a few starts, but otherwise, it was just all 5 guys were healthy and running. Robbie Ray has been fantastic. I was wrong on him. I didn't trust the track record, but 6-0 for the San Francisco team versus Kansas City at Washington. Man, I think you could probably make a case for a 5, but I'm going to go 4 on Ray.
Yeah, just the walks, but they don't seem to be hurt by the walks. Well, the whip is hurt by the walks. I'm going to go 5. I mean, to me, those strikeouts are so juicy, and I think there's good potential this week of more. Kansas City doesn't strike out. I said it. I took my finger off the piece. I'm going to stick with a 5, but low. You know what? Who did I say was a 4? Comparing him to, trying to remember some guy. No, there was some other guy that I made a 4 because he wasn't quite like a 5 to me. I think I do like Ray a little bit more, so I'm happy with that ranking.
Gotcha. Eric Fetty for the Cardinals versus Detroit versus Arizona. He feels like a 3, middle of the road 3, but kind of leaning 2, but versus Detroit. Yeah, those matchups aren't so great. Detroit, I have to get over in my head. Like, it's not a good matchup.
Watch him to beat your team for 3 straight days, and you get over it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2 on Fetty.
I'm going to go 2 as well, but I just want to point out he's a perfect example of a points league guy where innings count for a lot, and he gives you innings. But I'm going to stick with it 2.
Well, Ryan Pepio, in the absence of Shane McClanahan's, really kind of stepped up as kind of become, arguably the ace of this team for Tampa Bay. Shabazz pitched well early, but he's kind of hit the skids. Pepio only 2-5, but has really been pitching well lately. Versus Houston, versus Toronto. Not the best matchups in that little park, but I'm going to probably go 4 here.
Yeah.
Feels like a 3 now that I said it.
I'm thinking I'm at a 3. I was trying to say, why do I want to go 4? I think I'm going to go 3. You've been pitching better lately. You're right, but I'm still going to go 3. I'm using him with confidence, but if we're grading him relative to the other starters, I'm going to go 3.
Well, Patrick Corbin's enjoying a little bit of a renaissance here, but he's got to go to the Yankees before the end of the week at the White Sox. I'm not buying into what he's doing. Good for him, though, on, kind of finding it again. But at the Yankees, I think takes him off the table for me with so many right-handed bats there. I'm going to go 0 on Corbin.
Going 0 as well. And, he and Tyler Mahle, there's some Rangers that are, the pixie dust just has to go away.
Yeah, DeGrom 2.29 ERA, Eovaldi 1.78, Mahle 1.47. Pretty unreal.
Yeah, DeGrom, I hope you saw some of the game last night. He's back. Come on, he's wonderful. Eovaldi's pitching it. Mahle's just out over his skis. So I think the regression monster, I think either tonight or tomorrow, I forget which day's lined up. I don't like him. And Tyler Anderson, another Tyler, but that's a different team. He too is out over his skis.
Jack Leiter seemed to get on track.
A little bit. Good to see.
It's the White Sox in Chicago this week. Chris Bassett versus San Diego at Tampa Bay. It's been a nice rebound season for Bassett. I don't love these matchups, though. I think he's kind of out over his skis himself, Bassett, a little bit. But I'd probably go 3 here on Bassett.
He's kind of like a perennial 3/4, and you just, he comes in at a 3/4. You have to decide, do you go up or down? And I'm kind of with you with these matchups. I'm going to take it down to a 3.
Yeah, and then Mitchell Parker, the lefty for Washington, was hit by a comebacker in the leg his last time out. Still tentatively in line to start, but since there's a couple good outings at the very beginning of the season, been pretty pedestrian. So versus Atlanta versus San Francisco. Let me just take a peek at what the strikeouts have looked like. Yeah,
then move over one column and check out the home runs and ask yourself if that's going to last.
Yeah, he's given up just one homer.
One homer, 50 innings. You can on one someone else goes, Zola, that's great. Well, that's not going to last, So his ERA is over 4 without giving up home runs.
And he's actually issued more walks than strikeouts over his last 4 starts. Over his last 4 starts, he has 13 walks to 12 strikeouts.
Weather warming up. Actually, I don't remember if they're home or away, but Washington does play pretty small when it gets hot and humid in the nation's capital, and they are both at home.
Yeah, both at home.
You know what? I'm scared.
Yeah, I'm probably.
I don't know if he deserves a 0, but I'm not. I'm looking to not play Parker this week. If I'm not playing him, I'm giving him a 0.
Yeah, I'm going 0. Just if you look at just the narrow focus and just what he's done lately, it's been brutal.
Here's me going on a limb. I'll bet he more than doubles his home runs after this next week is over.
Yeah, that is a good point. That it's pretty fluky how well he's kept the ball in the yard.
He may double the first inning against Atlanta when Riley and Olsen take him deep.
That's true. A couple righty sluggers against the left.
Hey, who knows? If Acuna has a good weekend, he could be up. Well, maybe not.
All right. Well, let's recap our grades for the week of May 19th, 2025. Brandon Fott, I say 2. Todd, 3. JT Ginn, 0. Osvaldo Beto, 1. Spencer Strider, 4. Dean Kramer, 0. Tomoyuki Sagano, 2. Hunter Dobbins, I say 3. Todd, 2. Walker Buehler, 2. Ben Brown, I say 1, Todd 2. Nick Lodolo, 3. Logan Allen, 1. Gavin Williams, I say 3, Todd 2. Kyle Freeland, 0. Antonio Senzatella, 0. Davis Martin, 0. Tarek Skubal, 5. Framber Valdez, 5. Chris Bubich, 4. Jose Soriano, I say 2, Todd 1. Kyle Hendricks, 0. Edward Cabrera, 0. Quinn Priester, 0. A lot of zeros this week. Bailey Ober, 5. Cody Senga, I say 5, Todd 4.
That
Will
was the
Warren,
one.
Oh, okay, the one you were alluding to earlier.
Yeah, that was the one. Okay.
Will Warren, I say 3, Todd 2. Jesus Luzardo, I say 4, Todd 5. Aaron Nola, I say 1, Todd 2. Mitch Keller, I say 2, Todd 3. Bailey Falter, 1. Dylan Cease, 4. Luis Castillo, 5. Robbie Ray, I say 4, Todd 5. Eric Fetty, 2. Ryan Pepio, I say 4, Todd 3. Patrick Corbin, 0. Chris Bassett, 3. Mitchell Parker, 0. Well, the zeros pretty much knock about half of the starters out this week. But
it's not pretty, is it?
Yeah, it's not a great week for 2-star pitchers, but should be a fun week regardless. And great insight today, Todd. Appreciate it as always. Anything else on your mind today?
Nothing fell down during the pod. That's good. I mentioned it a couple times. I always a fun time when I talked to Patrick Davitt, PD at Baseball HQ. So that should come out later today. It's not, when I talk to PD, it's not, it's not a player analysis. It's actually you folks would like it because it's kind of diving into my how I do the rankings for RotoWire. So I write about it, but PD asks some good questions. So it's kind of fun. It's not always, is this kind of going to break out of a slump? It's like, how do you project wins?
Yeah, it's kind of how the sausage is made.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's good.
Turkey sausage for my doctor, right?
And Patrick Davitt's a great guy.
Yeah.
Big fan of his.
And there's a what I'd like to think is a funny moment within the pod. All right, I'll just go out and say it. My phone rang during the pod. I looked at it and go, that's not Ian. And so 4 people out there are going to laugh. But anyway.
He loves to talk trade. Well, great stuff. Appreciate the lively chat.
Yeah.
Good questions as always. And we wish you good luck this week. We'll be back with you next week on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast.